So we're going to get started, I think. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Judy L Mohr, and I'm an editor, but I'm also I'm a let me see if I can put my tongue back in my mouth. I'm the municipal liaison for Christchurch, New Zealand for Nanowrimo, and I'm also the ML for New Zealand Elsewhere. Now, if you're joining us today, we are talking to Gillian St. Keverns, but just before we go into anything about some of the questions that we have for her, we're just going to do a bit of a housekeeping thing. We are going to request that you keep your microphones muted and that your cameras are off, because it does help with our recording. So that way we can keep our focus on Gillian. That would be awesome. Thank you. So Gillian, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing?
Wow, thank you, Judy. Hi, I'm Gillian. I'm feeling oddly nervous. I'd like to preface everything I say today with just the disclaimer that although I write LGBTQ fiction and I am gay, my experience is unique to me. And so everything I talk about today, other people inside the community will have different views on it. So just like every writing advice that you hear, some of what I say will resonate with you. Some of it you'll be like, oh, I don't know about that. And that's great. Just take on what I say, see what sounds right to you, and go with that. And just be aware that while I'll be talking from my experiences, there is a world of other experiences out there, all as valid as mine and as valid as yours. So, yeah, disclaimer done.
Very important disclaimer, because I think that's for every form of writing, I think, to be honest, that there's always multiple different views on the subject. But isn't that what makes writing so much fun? Because there are
and
multiple
reading
views
as well, because there is no other sort of pastime where you can get inside somebody's head or multiple people's heads. It's just writing and reading is just so special that way. But yeah, like Judy said, my name's Gillian. I've wanted to be a writer since a very young age. I think Margaret Mayhew's stories is what's kind of inspired me to want to write and be a storyteller. But the moment that kind of I knew that I definitely was going to be a writer happened when I was 9 years old. My family was living in Singapore at the time. We first attended an American international school, and then we went to the British Overseas Family School. And at both schools, me and my sister were the only New Zealanders at the school. And that was a bit of a weird experience. We'd mainly lived in New Zealand up until then. So to go from being surrounded by other Kiwis to just being the only one was quite challenging. And I don't think I actually realized how challenging at the time. And it was a lunchtime. I just wandered into the school library and I picked up a book off the shelf. And I flicked open to the first page, and the author was describing a girl called Laura with woolly brown hair. And it's kind of contained right now, but I have quite big brown hair. It's just kind of expansive. And so immediately I identified with Laura. And then the story goes on and mentions a New Zealand place name. And I was like, what? This Laura's a New Zealander. There can be stories about New Zealanders. And that just kind of blew my mind that New Zealanders got stories about them, because everyone we'd studied at school was British or American. Everyone we saw on TV or on books were British or American. And this is the first time I think I picked up a book with a specifically New Zealand character. And I just felt...
That is so cool.
Yeah, it felt like somebody telling me, you matter. And that feeling has stayed with me. And I knew that I wanted my writing and my books to give other people that feeling. And so I kind of, I wrote fan fiction all the way through school. I didn't know it was fan fiction at the time. I've discovered that later. Um, Nobody saw my fanfic. It was mostly for me. And then I got to university and I discovered fan fiction that other people wrote it. And
Ooh.
then I discovered the slash community, which is people writing fan fiction about same-sex pairings. And I just gravitated towards this community instantly. It never occurred to me to question why I immediately felt at home and so connected with this group of writers who were writing about same-sex pairings. I came from a very traditional conservative Christian household. Um, my family was very loving and they never made me feel not accepted, but they also did not have any gay friends. So I didn't have any role models. I didn't have the vocabulary to describe how I was feeling. I did not know what the word lesbian meant until or what it was to be gay until I got to university. That's how sheltered I was. But yeah,
Okay.
I just immediately felt at home and pretty much wrote slash fanfic predominantly until 2009 when I decided to write my first original fiction, and it was The Vampire and the Accountant, and it was a gay romance, and that was pretty much me from then on. And as I became, sorry, Judy, I know
That's
you've got
okay.
tons of
That's okay.
questions.
No, no, no. You carry on. You go for it.
Yeah, so I found a home in the romance writing community. I felt welcome and accepted, but after a couple of years writing gay romance, I sort of started to feel like something wasn't right. Now, I felt safe writing gay romance because I am not a gay man. I mean, you can look at me and see that I am very obviously not a guy. And I think that I felt comfortable writing gay romance because there was no chance that somebody would look at me and say, "Are you gay?" And having that sort of realization kind of made me look at myself and ask myself, what am I avoiding here? And it took moving back to New Zealand, it took meeting a writing community that was just so welcoming and accepting of me. And it also took writing, kind of getting braver and writing characters with experiences that more closely related to mine to get me to realize that, hey, I am not as straight as I thought I was. In fact, I am not straight at all. And it took me far too long to realize. When I came out to my family, they were really confused. They were like, "We thought you knew." But I got there eventually, and my goal I would have got there a lot sooner if I'd had access to stories where the representation of what it was like to be gay was more like mine. I think we've got a problem that we've got very limited representation. We sort of seem the same story over and over, particularly in mainstream fiction and traditionally published fiction and on TV. But there are so many varied and unique experiences out there. There's more and more people like me having just a very gentle sort of finally catching a clue after how many years. And then there are the people who have known since they were 6 years old, which is kind of incredible to me. But and then there's all the experiences in between that. You've even got people sort of coming out in their rest homes and saying, hey, you know what,
Yeah.
there's something I need to tell you. And it's,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
you were talking about the representation
yeah,
within fiction. Why don't we just take a quick step back and we just sort of
yeah,
say or ask what distinguishes LGBT fiction from other fiction? Because it's not just having a gay character, right?
yeah. So this is a really good question, because my answer is, you could ask like 100 different LGBTQ authors this and get a different answer every single time, I'm sure. For me, it's not about having a gay character so much as having significant representation. So it's not a gay best friend, it is a gay best friend who is non-stereotypical and has a character development arc of his own. It is having, maybe a main character or a mum, a parent who is lesbian or trans or intersex or ace or demisexual or bi or pan, or engaging with those issues. So potentially it could be a picture book for 4-year-olds, and it's just you've got two dads in the background or two mums, or just kind of meaningful representation. So it's not there to tick a box, it's not there to reinforce a stereotype or a kind of a lazy perception. It's meaningful and it's real in some way.
I like how you said it's not there to tick a box, because I think you and I in the past, we've had this conversation about the television series or the anime series Legend of Korra, which is a anime series. It's a sequel to The Last Airbender. And right at the end of the very last episode, plug your ears if you don't want to hear it, 'cause spoiler alert, because here it's coming. There is this scene where you have Korra talking to the other female character that I cannot remember her name for the life of me. And they are going for an adventure in the spirit world because they can. And the very last screenshot is they're looking lovingly into each other's eyes. And I look at this going, there's no foreshadowing of this. There was no hint of this relationship. This is just to tick the box. This is put here because it needs that somebody somewhere along the line thought it needed to be here, but it's not actually necessary. Would you agree with those sorts of comments that if it's not necessary, then why is it there?
Do you know, I have not seen the end of Legend of Korra, so I can't speak to that. I do know that there's a big contingent of Korra fans who did see the end coming and for whom it was very meaningful.
I
Um,
must have been completely
for
oblivious then, because I missed all the clues. I missed it.
Well, this is really interesting because so many people can see the same thing totally differently, and also our standards for representation have changed. So we maybe end up touching on this later in our conversation, but way back we were just happy to see any kind of gay character in media. So at first, gay characters were exclusively villains. So if you think back, you've got like Ursula in The Little Mermaid. She's
Really?
based on a drag queen. Yep, they actually used a real life drag queen as the inspiration for her. Scar, he is so camp. He is glorious, but again, he's quite evil. And then in fiction as well, like I don't know why I'm going for the Disney movies, maybe because they are just so visual, and I'm pretty sure most people here will have seen them. But then after a while, that wasn't good enough. We wanted to be more than just the villains, and so we became the comic relief. So I don't know if anyone here has seen the BBC sitcom Are You Being Served? It's set in a department store, and there is a clerk there played by John Inman, Mr. Humphreys, who is very effeminate, very camp, and he was the breakaway star of the show. Him and Mrs. Slocum were hilarious, and he made it kind of acceptable to be a bit fruity, and so people loved him, but they didn't take him seriously. And so he kind of got us a bit further along, to the point where we have kind of the sassy gay friend, which is very similar to kind of representations of the sassy black friend, where you're like a comic relief or a sidekick, but you're still not allowed a happy ending. So like, there's that trope in horror movies, the black character is the first to die. Unfortunately, it happens a lot in mainstream media. If you've got a gay character, they can't be happy, because that would be too affirming, so they die. The most recent example is Supernatural, where after, I think, 7 seasons of hinting at this potential relationship between Dean and Castiel, they have Castiel say, "I love you," and then die. It's like, yeah. So it's we really need that representation, but we can do better than just tick boxes. I think it's really important for all writers to consider diversity when writing, to have a good look at their cast and just kind of see, who's missing, who's there. And not just because representation is important to me. I think I have very deeply personal reasons for wanting to see more representation, but when, as a writer, you push yourself to include other perspectives and other, characters from walks of life that are not your own, that can only be a good thing for you as a writer. We don't grow by repeating the same behavior over and over and over again, unless you're a 2-year-old. We grow by challenging ourselves and testing ourselves. And, even the 2-year-old eventually gets sick of watching Octonauts and moves on to Paw Patrol, or actually Paw Patrol 2 Octonauts.
Okay. Yeah. 2 shows that I do not know, but that's fine. That's okay.
You can count yourself fortunate. If anyone in the audience is familiar with Paw Patrol, I give you my deepest sympathies.
Okay, so about writing LGBT fiction, so it's more than just ticking boxes, so we're all cool with that. Can anyone write this? Or do you need to be?
So there is a bit of a debate kind of online on Twitter right now, where there are some people who would like to gatekeep who can write LGBTQ fiction and who can't. And this comes from a fear of being misrepresented. There have been instances in the past of writers who don't identify as LGBTQ writing, representing the rainbow community poorly or insensitively, or doing it to tick a box, or there's a term queer baiting, where you kind of hint at a relationship to kind of get the LGBTQ fans watching and never commit to it, because that way you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You can kind of string people in the rainbow community along, while also making sure that the hardcore Christian mum brigade is not going to come down on you and boycott you. So there is a lot of kind of suspicion in the writing community about, saying, yeah, anyone can write what they write. But for me personally, I don't think that we can just write from our own experiences. If we do that, we're bad writers. Our work has to accurately reflect the world that we inhabit, and our world is not straight and it's not white. And it's not male either. It is incredibly cool and diverse and weird and wonderful and unique. And if our writing doesn't reflect that, we're doing ourselves a disservice, and we're doing our readers a disservice, and we're doing our world a disservice. So I honestly think everybody shouldn't be afraid to give it a go. You may want to kind of ease yourself into it. You may want to take baby steps. That is totally cool. But honestly, we need stories that accurately reflect our world. And if people only write what they experience, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I will 100% agree with that, because I suppose it's the same arguments of a male writer writing a female. There are some words that I really wish some of them would not use, but in general, it's the same concepts. If we have a diverse society, we should be diverse in our books in that perspective. So I suppose that leads into the next question. Would you recommend a sensitivity reader for somebody writing this? Even if they're part of the community, would you still recommend that, a sensitivity reader?
Absolutely. So as I
You
said,
might want to explain what a sensitivity reader is for those who don't know. So
a sensitivity reader is somebody who has the cultural background, is of the sexual orientation or gender identity that you want to write, or it could be religion, it could be nationality, it could be many different things. It's basically a sensitivity reader is somebody who has the knowledge that you don't. And it is a hired position, like an editor or a cover designer. And the reason it is we kind of encourage people to pay your sensitivity reader is that minorities have a lot of hard work to do on a daily basis, just kind of getting through the day. And they probably get called on to kind of educate people a lot, just going about their daily life. Like maybe their boss calls them into the office to give the their perspective on this workplace change, or they may have to explain to a colleague, no, I don't use he him pronouns, I use they there, and this is why. And it's exhausting. It is, when you are not part of the mainstream, it's hard work, kind of getting through the day sometimes. So then being asked to work for free it's a bit much.
I understand. I get it.
Sorry. But a good sensitivity reader is able to kind of recognize where their experience ends, and there's recognize other experiences. So just like, an editor that works for one person might not be a good fit for you. It's worth finding a sensitivity reader that gets you and knows what you're about, while also having the the experience you're after, but also the kind of wider community experience, to recognize that their experience is not the be all and end all. It is really hard to find a good sensitivity reader. They are like unicorns, precious and rare. But Twitter is a
I was going to
gold
ask, where do
mine.
we find them?
Yeah, no, Twitter can be big and scary and loud, but it's a good place to find sensitivity readers. There are good sort of Facebook writing groups. You can kind of ask there, and people can direct you to the appropriate places. We have the in New Zealand, we've got the Rainbow Romance Writers, which is a small Facebook group, and we've got a variety of members with different sort of orientations who write different things. And if we can't act as sensitivity readers, we can kind of help steer you towards people who can. So there will be other people like that. I think just asking. The other thing too, if you're a bit nervous about approaching a sensitivity reader, and if you kind of want to do your homework first, read Own Voices authors. They are These Own Voices means that this is somebody writing from their identity. When I write gay romance, because I'm not a gay male, I don't consider myself an Own Voices author. When I write lesbian romance, I do. So it's kind of a bit weird where people draw the line is a bit different. But I mean, my stories tend to involve vampires and werewolves, and I am not personally acquainted with any vampires or werewolves, so people might kind of quibble at me using Own Voices at all. But as I said, everyone has their own different sort of definitions and ideas of what is appropriate. I'm sorry, Judy, I've kind of
Okay,
forgotten
it's fine.
what we
I'm
were talking
actually
about.
sitting here going, uh-oh, because my next door neighbor has started his lawnmower, and I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh
It's all
no.
good.
So
We can't
that's
hear
so
it.
oh good, because that means my microphone's working and doing its job. So that's good, because I'm like, I don't know if my husband is still on the other side of this wall, but if he is, close the door. Carrying on. So we know, okay, so we've got some sensitivity readers, and I have to admit, I'm sitting now thinking, because I've got one of my stories, high fantasy series, where I do have a couple of, a few gay relationships. There's a lesbian pair, and then at some other point is a male-male pair. And I'm going to be mentally going, right, okay, make sure sensitivity reader for at least those sections, because this could be really disastrous if I get these things wrong.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So are there any topics within LGBT fiction that we should be avoiding that are taboo?
Yeah, and it's actually, this kind of follows on really, really well from the topic of sensitivity readers. I'm going to use an example of a story that I wrote. I had a story involving a character who the guy he was dating was not a good match for him, and I wanted his boyfriend to meet somebody who was a better match for him and hook up with that other character. And the other character in this scenario was a trans male, and I am not trans myself, so I wanted to make sure that I was portraying this relationship in a positive way. I really wanted there to be no sort of suspicions of cheating. I wanted to make it really obvious that the original relationship was unhealthy for both of them, and that it was a much better thing for for the boyfriend to end up with the trans man character. And so I hired a sensitivity reader, and I was worried about the transition from one relationship, the breakup, and that. What the sensitivity reader picked up on was that the trans male, their backstory was that they'd escaped from an abusive relationship and were they'd come to this big city in hiding and needing help. And my characters had taken him in and kind of offered him a place of shelter. And the trans community they're much more likely to experience violence and discrimination than pretty much any other group. I think the statistics are like 40% of women will get harassed or physically assaulted in their lifetime, compared to 60% of trans women. So that part was accurate, but my sensitivity reader was like, we don't want to read about that. This is our life. We are sick of it. Think about the message think about the story you're telling here. And so, yeah, you could argue that the background I'd given this character was factually accurate, but I want my stories to be a safe place. I very deliberately set out that when I write, my characters never question who they are. I don't write the coming out angst, and I don't feature a lot of discrimination. I want my stories to offer people an escape and affirmation of who they are. And so the fact that I'd included this sort of story that was not affirming and actually really not
It doesn't
great.
sound like you either, because I've read so much of your stuff, and your stuff is funny and loving and warm,
Yeah,
and
and
that's not you.
so I hadn't considered this aspect at all, and I was completely blindsided. But as soon as they pointed it out, I was like, yeah, no, I do not want, this is not the story I want to tell. And so no matter how experienced you are as a writer, I think it's always really valuable getting that second opinion or third opinion or fourth opinion. The
But not too
other
many.
thing,
Not too many.
you have to draw the line somewhere. The other thing, actually, there's two more things that I just caution people to be wary of. And the first one is pseudonyms. There has been a couple of instances of writers writing gay romance as a woman, but using a male pseudonym and presenting themselves as male to have kind of more authenticity and portray themselves, kind of gain a bit more credibility within the community. That is, I would never recommend anyone do that, and I would say do not do that. It is really important that you are honest about who you are. Even if you're not comfortable using your real name, use your face, use your image. Oh no, I'm sorry. I've got my sister trying to call me. Help.
Oh no, it's okay. You just send her a message going, sorry, I'm in an interview.
Yeah, do you know what? I turned off my phone forgetting that. Oh my gosh, and I can't even. Hang on. I'm so sorry, everyone.
It's okay. It's okay. We still
Uh,
have you. You haven't lost. You haven't disappeared on us, and that's the important thing. You're still here.
yes, yes, okay. I'll just send her a really quick message to make sure she's ringing back.
Well, we can't hear it, so it's all good. Sorry.
Okay, that's fantastic. Sorry, people. I'm just going to say very quickly.
I'm in an interview, sis. Sorry, I can't answer call.
Okay, sorry about that. So
It's
anyway,
okay. So
yes,
why don't we just carry on about some of the other sides of dealing with this? So we've talked a little bit and we've touched briefly about the historical representation and how it's changed. Could you just sort of think about how far back some of the LGBT fiction has gone? Because I know, like, if I think off the top of my head, the poem Christabel, which is actually written, it took a span of about 4 years, and it was written 1798 to 1801. It's quite a, it took a long time for it to be written. It's actually about a lesbian relationship.
yeah,
And for something that old, from written in that time, to talk about these sort of topics, that's a bit forward thinking.
yeah. One of my favorite stories is Camilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. He's an Irish writer. It's a vampire story. It predates Dracula by a good 20 to 30 years. It was written in the 1860s or 70s, and it has lesbian subtext like nothing else. It is so, so good. Unfortunately, Camilla is a villain and she dies, so, not quite
So the
ideal,
worst
but
of
it's still good.
both of the things that you've gone through and said, how the,
Yeah.
the gay character is the one that dies, as well as the gay character being the villain. Oh, that's the worst of it.
Yeah, so in the 19th century, we've got Maurice and The Well of Loneliness as kind of big examples of famous gay
Yeah, I was
and
reading about that
lesbian
one this morning.
novels. We've also got Oscar Wilde. Really cool story about Oscar Wilde. Some people got a hold of a letter he wrote to a lover, and they attempted to blackmail him with this letter. So Oscar Wilde wrote a poem using the same words and language as in this letter, published the poem, and was like, yeah, go ahead, try and blackmail me. I'll just say it's a draft. And yeah, so Oscar Wilde, amazing.
That is clever.
Yep. So,
It's a shame he had to
but
hide, but
yeah, well, he did not do a great job of hiding, poor guy. Um, so Shakespeare, Shakespeare's sonnets, very famously, he started off writing the sonnets to a woman who he was expressing sexual attraction for and a young man who he was expressing romantic attraction for. By the end of the sonnets, he is sexually attracted to the guy and romantically attached to the woman. Like, that's pretty cool.
that's pretty cool.
But even before that, okay, so you have the Greek and Romans, obviously. You had Sappho writing lesbian poetry, because of course she was. And you have got so many. I remember at university picking up a Roman translation to practice my Latin, and and it has really erotic sex scenes between between two guys, basically. I was not expecting that, but kudos to the University of Canterbury Library for keeping it on their shelves. And yeah, we've got Greek, we've got the Achilles and Patroclus. Their love story was depicted on vases in poetry. Yeah, there's a history there, and this is
Oh, cool.
just in Western culture. Like in Eastern culture,
Yeah,
there was
I've seen a few things in Eastern culture as well.
yeah,
I've seen quite a few. Yeah. Um, so last week when we were talking with Amy, Alexa, and Steph, we were talking a little bit briefly about Regency Romance and how if you write Regency Romance, you actually need to tone down the promiscuity. You can't use the actual accuracy of the period of how promiscuous they really were, because it's not sort of accepted in today. Is there anything like that within the LGBT fiction that we have to tone down to make it acceptable?
Yeah, so I'd say if you want to write, well, my approach when writing my vaguely historical stories is that I tone down the discrimination and the angst, because it was not good to be gay in the Victorian period. And I am all about writing affirming, empowering stories. So I try to, my character's road to self-acceptance is a lot easier than it perhaps historically accurate, but nobody needs that kind of negativity. We have moved on, and I think it's okay that our fiction moves on too. I think it's much more important to be kind than to be historically accurate. So yeah, I hope I haven't annoyed anyone with that.
I think that's probably a perfect segue into talking about your Gothic romance series. Guys, I just want to show you how gorgeous these covers are. They're absolutely stunning. This is the first book in the series, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
Yes, first one? The Secretary and the Ghost. And I think the second one, if I've read them in the right order, because I probably didn't, knowing me, was this one. Look how stunning this is. This is The Mystery of Brackenwell Hall. Now, this one's got a very specific reason why I'm showing it today, because it was the feature book for now, let me see if I get this right, the Big Gay Fiction Book Club. Yeah?
Yeah.
What was that like, having this book right here,
It was
the month of book?
it was quite amazing. So a bit of backstory. The Big Gay Fiction podcast has been around since November 2015. It's hosted by two husbands, Will and Jeff, who are authors and avid readers and pop culture enthusiasts. And I was their first ever fan email. So I, yeah, it was kind of one of my author goals to be featured on their show. And then years pass, and out of the blue, I get an email saying, "Hi, Gillian, Jeff here. We've selected Mystery of Brackenwell Hall to be our book club book for October. Any chance we could talk to you about it?" And that was just so cool. I was probably a little bit scary and stalkery, because it's kind of a one-way communication. I've been listening to them for years, so I kind of know them, and like I've got this imaginary relationship with them. They barely know me, so I'm sure they're like, "Oh, thank God for COVID. The stalkery New Zealander has to stay in Aotearoa and isn't going to come bother us." But they are lovely. They are very gracious hosts. Yeah, they really made me feel at home. And Will shares my love for things over the top and gothic and ridiculous. And it was such an ego trip to listen to them talk about my book and how much they enjoyed it. It was just fantastic. I've just heard the door open outside.
It's okay. We'll be
Hopefully my
okay.
mum
We'll be
has
okay.
remembered that we've got a podcast on, because yeah, we
We
may
can
have
make
a
this work.
quick guest
All right, so
appearance.
I'm going to put in my little plug about this because, okay, I think the first story I read of yours, Gillian, was The Ugliest Christmas Sweater, and I was pissing myself laughing. It was so funny. She's got really quirky humor, and it's just amazing. I loved it. But what I love about this series, and there's actually, I mean, if I just show you some of the other ones that are in the series, because there are some, like this one, gorgeous cover again, guys. Vampire Relic. And then, of course, this one, The Haunted Bedchamber. Can you tell I'm a fan of this series? It's actually an awesome, awesome series. But what I love about it is not necessarily the fact that it's the LGBT romance books. Because that, to me, is the minor part. That's not what draws me in. What draws me in is this intrigue and mystery and paranormal side of this that just, I want to know what's going on. Like in this one, so the secretary and the ghost, it was the ghost. I wanted to know who that ghost was and why he was after Pip. I wanted to know. The relationship, the gay relationship was just, yeah, whatever. Give me the ghost. and I think that's what all of your stories are like. It's, the relationship is just part of it. It's just there. It's the rest of the story that really draws you in. And I just want to stay there because I love the characters and their world. And they're so cool. I love them. Sorry, but that was me. So if anybody's wanting to read these things, I really do recommend this. And this series, so this is the first one in, and this series, remind me if I'm wrong, it's Read by Candlelight?
Yeah.
That's cool. And you're still working on the Read by Candlelight series, aren't you?
Yep, I'm actually writing book 14 at the moment, and do not be put
14?
off, but yeah, by
14?
the large
I'm
number
so
of
far behind.
series. These are novellas, and they're all intended to be standalone, so you can jump in and out of the series as you wish. Yeah. The smallest one is 30,000 words. The biggest ones are 50,000 words. Most are about 40. So they're 2 to 3 hours of fun for you.
Really
They
short
are a lot
reads.
more work for me.
Well, it's writing, and of course they're going to be a lot more work for you. Since we're talking about, now we're moving into writing, I know you are a NaNoWriMo fan.
Yes, I love
So,
NaNoWriMo.
what was your first NaNoWriMo experience, and what, I think you've published that book that you was your
Yeah.
first NaNoWriMo.
Oh,
Tell us about your first NaNoWriMo.
it's not actually my first NaNoWriMo. I think the first time I did NaNoWriMo, I wrote a middle grade novel about an acrobat who was running away from a circus. And I wanted to finish it in 50,000 words, and I wrote 50,000 words. I hadn't finished the story, but I was at university at the time, and Nano kind of clashed with exams, so I just let it drop and
Yeah,
studied.
for
And
those who are watching this from the US, in New Zealand, university exams tend to be in November.
October, November,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so I think this was my Nano 2013 experience. This is Thorns and Fangs. I wrote
Sexy
maybe
hot.
6. Oh man,
Now she's blushing.
yeah, I wrote 60,000 words of this as part of Nano. Wrote for the first week of December, and then I was in Japan teaching English at the time, so the rest of my December just got taken over by Christmas lessons and stuff. So it wasn't actually until January that I was able to come back and finish it. And then this was my first novel, so I think I wrote it in 3 months, and then I spent 2 years or so revising it. And before submitting it to Nine Star and it getting accepted. But this is the first in a 4-book series, and other books in this series were also became subsequent NaNoWriMo projects. So I love Nano. I really enjoy it, and I always try to do it.
Now, are you participating in NaNoWriMo this year?
Yes. Have I written anything? No. I've
But
had
you're not going rebel like I am.
I've yeah, well, do you know, I think the fact that it is in New Zealand, November 14th, and I'm unlikely to start my nano project until the 16th means I am rebel. Um, yeah, once I actually start, I'll be aiming for at least 3,500 words a day. So it's
And
kind
she
of
can do that. She's a
nano,
machine.
yeah. Well, we'll see.
She can't do that. She's a machine. I've seen her word counts and I'm like, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous, but that's okay. All right, right. So what advice would you have for NaNoWriMo participants?
Um, I'm trying to think of advice that you won't already have been given, but I think the best advice is to kind of just really embrace the challenge that is nano. And you know, the reason behind nano is not to create a beautiful masterpiece. It is to help people who've always wanted to write a book but don't have the time find the time to write their book. So do not worry too much about what you're writing. That's what the editing process is for. Nano is about learning how to find time to write, to build your writing muscles, to shut off your internal editor and your critic, and to kind of find the joy of writing. It's just find, you know, what happens when you sit down every day to write. And actually, from my experience, when you sit down every day and work on a project, things happen. Like the story starts to take on a life of its own and develop in ways that you haven't plotted out, just because you're continually working on it every day, every day, every day, and just giving it that sort of constant focus. It just, your subconscious, even when you're not writing it, your subconscious is processing it, and just, yeah, it gives your story the ability to take off and develop in ways that you never imagined. So yeah, just
Yeah, great
give
fun.
nano a go, but also don't stress it. If it's not working for you, try something different, see what you can change. Go rebel. Maybe instead of writing, aiming to hit 1,500 words, maybe your goal is just to sit down and write something every day, whether it's 1 word, 100 words, who knows?
We've actually got somebody in the, I think it's in Jessie's Wordsmiths, who said her goal is to write one paragraph every day, and
Oh,
that's
that's
it.
great.
Which I think that's actually quite awesome for her to actually say that. So yeah, so it, as Gillian has said, and I think I've said multiple times, use this time to to build a routine, because those routines are going to service you. Right. I think it's probably time to open it up to some other questions. So if anyone's got a question that has joined us today, speak now or forever hold thy peace. What questions have we got? Anyone? No? No one? Oh.
I'm usually the person who thinks of a good question to ask, so it's kind
Well,
of,
how about you ask your own question then? Why not?
oh, um, let's see.
Because I'm sure I missed one or two along the way.
Yeah, actually, it looks like I've got a couple of more of like things not to do. Um, oh, so we talked a wee bit about own voices writers, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I highly encourage everybody to write, you know, diverse experiences, but I also think at the same time, it's really important that we boost the voices of other writers who are, you know, from different communities. So for example, if I wanted to write a Pacifica character, I think it'd be very important for me to read works by Pacifica authors and then share those stories with my audience. For example, at the back of the Read by Candlelight series, I often give a book recommendation of something that I've read or that informed the story, or just something that I think is cool. Yeah.
Cool.
So,
I just opened up just randomly this one, the secretary and the ghost, and in the back of that one you have Earthly Pleasures
oh yeah, Sarah
by Sarah
Trevor.
Trevor.
Um, Actually, that's hilarious because that is a Regency gay romance.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's with fantasy elements. It is. I got to beta read that for Sarah, and it's fantastic.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. All right, it looks like no one's got any questions, but that's okay. We might as well just move into the lightning round. You ready?
No.
No, they're innocent, trust me. Perfectly innocent. You'll be fine. You ready? Ready?
Yum.
Okay. Number one, coffee, tea, or wine?
Tea.
Ooh, what type of tea?
Okay, this is quite involved. So from about 6 o'clock when I wake up to 3 o'clock, I'm generally drinking black tea, preferably flavored. From 3 o'clock onwards, it's either green tea or decaf tea. I have this really cool, it's called Victorian vanilla, and it's from, what's the place in the Barrington Mall?
Tease
Blue and
me?
white. No,
No?
it's blue and white and stripy. I forget.
Oh, in the
But
Barrington Mall.
yeah,
Oh, don't know. I didn't even know there was a tea place in there.
yeah.
Mind you,
Anyway,
I don't go that way that far, so that's okay. Carry on.
whoever they are, they make this Victorian vanilla blend, which is black tea with the caffeine taken out and flavored with vanilla. They've also got a variety called London Fog, which sounds amazing.
Oh,
But
yeah, okay. London
and then
fog.
And then in the evening, I've got a couple of varieties of herbal tea. At the moment, I think I'm drinking raspberry and pomegranate.
I have to admit, I'm a tea person myself, and one of the teas that I have sitting there that I like having in the morning, besides my chai, I've got to have my chai, but this one, it's a black tea, and it's like a hot cinnamon, and it just, you know, the gummy bear, the cinnamon bears that you can get?
Yep,
That's what it smells like, and it's so yum. All
that
right,
smells
next one.
amazing.
All right, next one. You ready?
Yep,
Cake or ice cream?
ice cream cake.
Cheater. Okay, here we go. Chocolate or potato chips?
Chocolate. That one's really tough, but yeah, it has to be chocolate.
Okay,
I have a
here's
chocolate
a
bar
question. Oh,
down
you got a
here.
chocolate bar handy?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've got a few of them hiding around as well. Okay, what is the most bizarre food you've ever had?
Hmm. So when this is no longer the most bizarre food I've ever had, but it's the one that comes to mind. My first week in Japan, I went to a fireworks festival and got handed a squid on a stick, and I was just like, I guess this is my life now.
Squid on a stick.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. That's a new one on me. That's new. Okay. Favorite author?
Margaret Mayhew. But I've
Mm,
got a whole ton of like second favorite or favorite equal authors.
I have to admit, I actually like Madigan's Quest from Margaret Mayhew. It's one of my favorites from hers.
Yeah,
So I love Madigan's Quest. Tried to get my kids into it. Didn't work. The heathens. Okay. Paperback or ebook?
I love ebooks, but there's something really special about paperback.
They really, really are. I mean, come on. It's beautiful. I mean, okay, guys, if I had ebook, I would have only seen that. I wouldn't have gotten that. Or Where's the really nice one? Where's the okay, we'll go back to the Brackenwell Hall one. Brackenwell Hall. Look at that back cover. It's gorgeous. You only get that in paper. You don't get that in ebook. Sorry guys, but you don't. Okay, Gillian. What would you like us to know about what you're working on, about the things coming out? Where can we find more information about your writing? Here's your chance.
Well, you can check out my current sort of backlist at www.gillianstkevern.com, and you can see for yourself how good I am at putting what I've talked about today into practice. For updates about what I'm working on and my new releases, I'd say subscribe to my newsletter. There's a link to that on my website. And I have recently started a Facebook group, and mostly it is people sharing pictures and memes of Count Von Count, which is pretty cool. But yeah, come and find me in any of those places. I am pretty friendly, as Judy will attest.
Don't you have a Patreon as well? I seem to remember.
Oh yeah, I have a Patreon.
Yeah, you might want to advertise the Patreon.
Yeah, now, do you know, this is really embarrassing. I think that if you subscribe to my newsletter, there is a link to the Patreon on it. I don't think there's a link to the Patreon from my website. So I'm not sure how to tell people to get there. I guess if you went to Patreon and Googled me, you might find me.
Gillian!
Yeah, I'm sorry. I honestly, I forget about it, except when it comes time to put up my early bird release. The benefits of subscribing to Patreon is that you get my books a week before anyone else does, and you get them in EPUB format. So, yeah.
Seriously, it's not on your web. Oh.
You
and I are going to have a chat about that.
We are.
Naughty, naughty. Should be on your website.
Yep.
Seriously, Gillian. Seriously.
Yep.
Right.
This is why getting a sensitivity reader or a second opinion is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. So we will sort you out. We're going to have a chat about that. We're going to get you all connected and properly, honestly. People, for those who don't know, I'm known in amongst my writing community as the person who is pretty much up with the play with doing, oh, and there she goes with the T. How awesome is that? But I'm within the writing community. I'm the one that's known as up with the play of branding, social media, websites, that sort of thing. So for me to hear that Gillian doesn't have her Patreon connected to her website, naughty, naughty, naughty. We are going to sort you out. Okay. Right. So I think that's, unless anybody's got any last minute questions, I think that's going to be pretty much it.
If you think of questions that you know, 10 minutes from now, which is what I always do, feel free to email me, info@gillianstkevern.com. I am more than willing to answer your question to the best of my ability.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So basically, just as a bit of an up what's going to be coming up. So it turns out tomorrow, there is actually a Zoom-based write-in that is happening.
It's going to be so cool.
And it literally did magically appear. It's Harry Potter themed, and it magically appeared. I got it. I went to bed, and I got up yesterday morning, and there it was. It was just suddenly there. It's like, okay. Magically appeared it is. And so, yep, Harry Potter writing theme, here we come. And it's going to be tomorrow at 1 p.m. New Zealand time, which works out to be 6 p.m. Central time, or 7 p.m. Eastern time. I have little notes here today, so it's not me doing calculations of some calculations. I have everything there. There is an added note sitting here for me to say that you guys do need to register for any of the Zoom events that we have, because if you don't, you're not getting the links. Sorry, that's the way we're doing it. It's a matter of safety.
There's an additional step after you register, right? You get a confirmation email that you have to reply to.
Click that confirmation, click it, say yes, you want to be there. And those lists do get deleted after the event, so don't stress too much about your name being on the mailing list, because it's only for those events. Next week, we are talking to Robin Weiss and Michelle McConaughey. I think I've said her name, McConaughey. Oh, I keep saying her name wrong, and I really do apologize, and I'm going to have to make sure I say it right next week. They're going to be talking to us about children's literature and an event that they've actually coordinated, which is the Tamariki Book Festival, which is next weekend in Christchurch. Go Christchurch, we've got a book fair, come on. Okay, I think that's going to be it. I'm going to say, see you later, guys. And go buy our books. They're awesome. They're totally awesome. Bye.
Bye.